I don't often provide a content warning. It's usually just you get what you get. However, I do want to give one this morning. I will mention teen suicide this morning, and I will bring up the name of Nex Benedict. If you need to care for yourself in light of those topics, I urge you to do so. Not because I think you can't handle hard things, but because I know some days are harder than others, and you know better than I what you need in this moment. Every Friday night, someone in our family has their turn at choosing a movie for all of us to watch together. Technically, that person gets to choose whatever they wish. However, there are some unwritten rules about trying not to make others overtly miserable. I fail regularly, by the way. Or scaring anyone out of sleep. Cardinal rule. Our teens are remarkably kind to the rest of us nearly all of the time. Because I overvalue efficiency and I can smell an opportunity a mile away, I often keep a mental list of movie recommendations from friends or critics that seem like they might do the trick when someone has waited too long to make their choice and the crowd is growing restless. It was in just such a situation that I was able to casually, because parents must almost always make suggestions to their teens casually and without any obvious attachment, recommend that my son check out the trailer for the 2016 Denis Villeneuve movie Arrival when he was without preference with minutes until showtime. Arrival stars Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner and has as its primary focus the interactions between an American linguist and alien life forms. I can suggest this film enthusiastically to all of you, even those who might not usually watch a movie with aliens featured so prominently. I won't go into much detail about the movie because spoilers are annoying, but I do want to raise a particular idea from the film because I think it's critically important. The idea is a linguistic theory that the language that we use shapes how we see the world. This sounds sort of simplistic if you don't really think about it, so let me unpack it just a little bit. I can't speak for you, but in my extremely elementary notion of language and my experience in the world, I see something and then I dig in my head for words that help me describe it or make sense of it or categorize that experience. In other words, the experience, the subject or object or action, is first. The idea forwarded in Arrival, which is loosely tied to a controversial linguistic theory known as the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, suggests that language doesn't just give people a way to express their thoughts, it influences or even determines their thoughts. The language comes first. This hypothesis moved out of favor for some time, thanks to Noam Chomsky, but has recently been revived by scientists who found relationships between environment and language that suggest that the language that we have may impact what we see, how we see it, and whether or not we are able to react or interact in appropriate and helpful ways. I am no linguist, but I happen to believe this theory. I believe that our language can lock us in and can make us behave in ways that are contrary to our own values, can make us miss out on countless opportunities for community and growth, and can relegate us to small, isolated bubbles in which we may never experience the fullness of either our potential or the beauty of what this life has to offer. Let me slow down for a minute and get very, very clear in the way that only a terrified parent can. On February 7th in Owasso, Oklahoma, a fight broke out in a bathroom at Owasso High School. On February 8th, Nex Benedict, a non-binary 16-year-old who had been in an altercation with 3 girls in that bathroom, died. Nex, who used they, them, and increasingly he, him pronouns, was in that bathroom because Oklahoma law required Nex to use the bathroom for the gender assigned to him at birth. There are many questions about exactly what happened that day in Owasso. Protocols were not followed after the fight by either school administrators or other staff, including school security and the nurse. Nex, who had reportedly blacked out during the fight, was suspended and sent home, where their mother put them in the car and sought medical care. The Benedicts were later sent home with a pretty typical what to look for list of advice from the ER, with the assumption that Nex likely had a concussion. The next morning, Nex Benedict died at home. A month after this incident, the autopsy reveals that Nex had several head wounds, but lists the cause of death as suicide by drug toxicity, a fatal combination of Benadryl and Prozac. For this mom, there is little doubt that the true cause of Nex Benedict's death was the bullying that the Benedicts pointed to that Nex had been enduring for months. All of this because Nex did not fall neatly into the categories that American English has traditionally provided for pronoun reference. All of this because of the discomfort that we feel when we encounter something that we don't understand. All of this because we have allowed the past to limit the present and the future of some humans for the comfort of other humans. Dead children, because of our insistence on binary categories and bad theology. What I would suggest to you today is that the binaries and categories that we use to make sense of our world only do their job when they actually fit, when they actually describe what is going on according to the being that we are attempting to understand. Our categories may well be necessary and efficient, but they are not necessarily accurate. They are often not compassionate, and perhaps most importantly, they are not complete and final. We can see in current circumstance how words and categories from the past are inadequate to the ways that we want to understand the world today. We can see how further nuance is required when we talk about race, ethnicity, even finance, which is mostly numbers. Our categories are shortcuts, but they are not the whole story, and they are most certainly not divinely inspired. As we advocate for a world in which liberation and authenticity is available to all, we must face the limitations of our categories. We must recognize the moments when our language is leading us to deny humanity. We must learn and teach our young people that we never have the right to decide what someone else's identity is or should be. We must learn to grow beyond our words. And you may be tempted today to feel pretty good about living in Illinois rather than Oklahoma. I do. And I submit that the state legislature here has done a better job for humanity than the legislature in Oklahoma, that has introduced 54 bills to limit LGBTQ people's healthcare access, inclusion in schools, and options for self-expression. That's the highest number in the country. But the truth is that the experience that Next Benedict had could have happened anywhere. Hate doesn't have to make it to the State House to exist in the schoolyard. The language of the binary exists in all of our spaces. The fury at being asked to change our perceptions and our habits and the way that we talk shows up everywhere. Even in Illinois, even in Northern Illinois, even in Chicagoland, Illinois. What are we to do in the face of it all? This reality that our insistence on the binary has wrought. We can change our language and the way we choose it to reflect the liberation that we wish for all. We offer our own pronouns to normalize the sharing of pronouns. We ask folks about pronouns to make space for all responses. We finally add the pronoun sticker to our church name tags, even if we continue to struggle with getting the references right. I have it on good authority that those stickers exist in this building. We create a linguistic opportunity for individuals to claim who they are rather than assigning them to the limited and inadequate categories that we have been taught. We recognize the harm that comes, particularly to young people, from denying their knowing about who they are, and we work to prevent that harm. That's first. That's the emergency response team step. That's the 911 answer. And I implore you to take those steps if you've not yet done so. Suicide rates for LGBTQ kids decrease as the number of folks in their sphere respecting their pronouns increases. I'm going to say that again. Suicide rates for LGBTQ kids decrease as the number of folks in their sphere respecting their pronouns increases. That's the math on the importance of breaking this linguistic binary. That's the math on overcoming discomfort with grammar that feels different. The way we use our language has a direct impact on the lives of young people. Mightn't it also be true that our experience of the folks around us shifts as we create space for more identities? Mightn't it also be true that we will see others differently when we allow them to tell us who they are, rather than insisting we had it figured out a long time ago? These categories, these linguistic binaries, round holes that we want to stuff all square pegs into, exist in other situations outside of gender, and our inflexibility, our insistence on sticking with our understanding, our failure to listen to the square pegs, has caused problems in other areas as well. So many that I couldn't even name them all and get you out of here for coffee, and I know that's really important. Robin Wall Kimmerer, who we heard from in the reading, reminds us that different cultures use different categories. when she details that many Indigenous Americans refer to all living things as kin. There is an intimacy in this larger category. There is a respect. There is a recognition of interdependence when we see deer and elm and walleye as neighbor and migrant as kin. There's more to this complicated recategorization that Kimmerer is asking us to try on, because that same linguistic turn puts rocks and other objects that many would categorize as things in the alive category, thereby making them kin also. There is accommodation and an expectation of communication of sorts here. Kimmerer is challenging our use of the binary, asking us to reconsider it and where the edges of those categories fall. Kimmerer explains that seeing more of the earth as alive and all alive as kin inherently changes our interactions, encourages gratitude and reciprocity, decreases the likelihood of harm. In a talk Kimmerer gave at a library in Wisconsin a few years ago that I attended via Zoom during the time that we did everything via Zoom, she proposed using the pronouns ki, K-I, for singular, and kin for plural earthly beings. In these groupings, we would find cardinals, brown bats, lizards, sharks, my beloved dogs, rocks, Ted Cruz. That was hard. And non-binary teens. We would find oak trees, rivers, black-eyed Susans, and Lynn Cheney. We would find Rashida Tlaib, Benjamin Netanyahu, Palestinians, Jews, Arabs, and Israelis. We would find native and invasive plants. We would find native and newly arrived people. Earthly beings, all. Kin. Holy. Gay, straight, bi, cis, trans, queer. Holy. Female, male, non-binary. Kin. Holy. Our language and the intellectual piles it represents are tools. They are ways of seeing. They are ways of understanding only insofar as they represent reality. They are useful only insofar as they encourage us to live lives that align with our values. There is no reality in which male and female represents all earthly beings. None. To insist on it is both fool's errand and contrary to everything we believe in about how we should honor the interdependent web of all existence. The future, the liberated future, is non-binary. And so, my friends, is the past. Liberation points to flexibility in thought and action. Compassion requires us to recognize the moments when we allow our tools to dig graves for people and beings that we don't understand. Our faith calls us to more and better ways of seeing, of talking, and of being in this world. May we answer that holy call. May it be so. Amen.
Visit us at UUSG.org.